Welcome to Story Jam. Thank you all for coming. My name is Ryan Claringbo. I'm the director of the public library here. One of my tasks is to make sure that we are on time. I apologize, we're already a little behind. All right, a couple of housekeeping things for you all. We have 4 restrooms through these ways. Pictures are fine to take of the speakers, but please don't do any video recording. We have a link, this is being live streamed, and a link will be sent out by the library in case you want to go back and watch it or share it with your friends and family. There will be a break halfway, and we'll have food from Madison Sourdough Bakery, and if you didn't see it already, we have coffee, which is perfect at this hour, trust me, from the Monona Starbucks. And then please also, of course, when each storyteller is up here, please give them your full attention. So the Story Jam is the kickoff of our One Community, Many Voices initiative here at the Monona Public Library. And the goal of this is to basically capture Monona's story. And how do you do that? You capture all the people that make up the Monona community, get all of their stories, people of all ages, all the local business people, seniors, veterans, children, families. And that's what we're going to be doing starting in 2019. We'll be collecting these stories at the library, and we'll be also going out into the community and getting your story. And we look forward to getting all your stories, and then we'll be having them accessible on our website and also in the library, so you can come read your story, a family, friend member story, or maybe someone you never met in the community, and you're going to find out that you have many things in common. If you are interested, we have these sign-up sheets out in the lobby area, and we'll just ask for your name and contact information, and we'll update you on the project as it goes. This initiative would not be possible without all of the help that we've received from the Beyond the Page program, Dane Arts, the Wisconsin Humanities Council, of course, our wonderful friends of the Monona Public Library, and then also our great partners of Historic Blooming Grove Historical Society, the MG21 Liberal Arts Charter School, and the Monona Community Media, WVMO, our own local radio station. Thank you. And I want to just thank right now all the people that are going to be coming and sharing their stories. Incredibly brave to do this. I can't imagine doing it, though I'm going to say, please share your stories, and I will over time, but still, to be up on this stage and do that is, it's incredible. And I want to thank them all right now for doing that and taking the time to do this. And starting with our wonderful MC, Kevin Lamar Wilmot II. He's coming right now. Kevin is a local musician and storyteller. And, you know, I'm feeling a second time. Kevin, please shout out the name of your band that you are the lead of.
Don't Mess with Cupid.
Don't Mess with Cupid. And you all are in for a treat. So, Kevin, please come up.
Let's give it up for Ryan, everybody. So, how many of y'all been to a story slam before? All right, so you guys kind of know the deal. So people are going to be telling their own true stories tonight. Stories that are true to them and experiences true to them. And we all are here to kind of lift everybody up. And also, I think that stories are the thing that make us most connected as human beings. Because stories, before we had The Bachelor and the NFL, we had stories. We had experiences that we told, and we taught each other through our stories. So I feel like that stories are a very telling and teaching thing about our souls. And so, but first I'm going to talk about some fun things that we have going up here at the library. Do you guys know about the next event that's happening? It's Loud in the Library. Surf Up. So that's January 26th from 7 to 11. And there's going to be pulled pork sliders. There's going to be music by Banana Wind. There's going to be a cash bar. There's going to be James the Magician. And a 50-50 raffle, my favorite. So you can buy those tickets at the circulation desk upstairs, or you can also buy them on PayPal for $25. And like I said before, that money goes to supporting events like this and kids' supplies and all the beautiful things that we need to keep this beautiful library going. Let's give it up for Monroe Library one more time, everybody. I want to give a big special thanks to Will and Justin here, who are our tech guys, making it work for everybody, and Tony for making this whole thing happen. Can we give it up for Tony, everybody? It's a lot of work making something like this happen, so it's not easy, and now we're here, and we're gonna tell some stories. Y'all ready for some stories? All right. Our first storyteller is Alyssa Hartson. And I've been working with her and the teachers at MG21 the last month and helping these kids just kind of find their stories and tell their stories. And it's been an amazing, humbling, righteous experience for myself. And I want to give an introduction to Alyssa Hartson. She's a teacher at MG21 since 2015. Alyssa has been working with teenagers of the Monona Grove district. She lives in Madison with her husband and Surly touring bikes. All right, let's give it up for Alyssa, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so I'd like to ask that everyone take a second and imagine a time where all of you or you have bitten off more than you can chew. I feel like these moments in our lives, I think everybody has moments like this, some more than others, but I feel like these moments, when we put ourselves outside of our comfort zone, really help define who we are. So much so, and I believe that so dearly, that I spent the majority of my adult life putting myself in situations where I felt like I had bitten off way more than I could chew. For example, when I graduated from university, instead of getting a full-time job, I decided I'd give seasonal work a shot. And so I got a job up in Alaska, guiding on the Matanuska Glacier. But I'm from here. Like, I had never even been on a glacier before. And not only that, but we lived in tents. So at this stage in my life, I had only spent like maybe 2 or 3 nights in a row in a tent. And now I was going to go spend 3 or 4 months living in a tent. It's kind of a big deal. My husband and I, we cycle tour a lot. And when we were in Southeast Asia, we were in Laos. Beautiful country, but it's like sparsely populated. And so we wouldn't carry a lot with us. We were going really lightweight. And that included food. And as we would go from village to village, they would have these like sandwich carts. And it would be like, you know, like the baguettes. And then in the display case, it would be like a variety of super questionable meats. But we were starving, so we were like, yeah, we'll take 2, please. And sure, you can go ahead and put that really weird colored mayonnaise on there. I'm pretty sure it tastes pretty good. Again, super questionable. I could go on for hours about these crazy stories that I have from my travels, but eventually it started to feel like something was missing. Like I wasn't getting out of it what I used to. And so I'd always wanted to be a teacher, so I thought, well, hey, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time for me to become a teacher. And I had done all these crazy things, so it's like, I mean, how hard could being a high school science teacher really be, right? So I got a job at MG21, and I will never, ever forget that first day. I had spent hours collecting material and getting everything just so in my lesson plan, just for like a 55-minute lesson. So that first day, I'm walking down the hall and I've got all my materials in my arms, and I've got my fancy new teacher outfit on, and my stomach is just like doing cartwheels, and I'm so nervous. And I make it up to the to my classroom, and I turn and I walk in. There's some students there already. I walk in, I'm like, hey, and they're like, hey, what's up? I'm like, oh, hey, okay. I'm just gonna I went to the front of the classroom and I stood there, And they sat down, and ever so slowly, the rest of the students trickled in, and they filled up all the seats, and I'm just standing there, and I'm just staring back at them. And they're all staring back at me, waiting, and it's silent. Room full of teenagers. I was just thinking to myself, oh, Hartzland, what did you get yourself into this time? I got through it. And here I am. This is fourth year being a teacher, and I love it. And I spent my whole life living my authentic self, and now I feel like I'm privileged to work with these amazing young people, and I get to help them figure out what their authentic self is. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Alyssa one more time, everybody. I've done these storytelling, these events quite a few times, and being the first storyteller is the most mortifying thing you could ever imagine. But that was great. That was great. So I don't know if you guys know this, but the topic for tonight is finding your path and walking your path. So I feel like that's a beautiful start to that story, because the next we have some students that are going to come up and tell some stories that are from MG21, the alternative high school here in Monona. And our next student, our next storyteller is going to be Cody Langer. And he is a student at MG21. He likes to focus on his and the world's energy and just wants to do what he can to be aware. Let's give it up for Cody, everybody!
My story is about a music festival called Electric Forest. It's called Electric Forest because there's so much positivity and great energy that is kind of electric. So this is 5 days of camping in huge fields with a bunch of different people. And at night, you get to go into this forest that has over 100 different artists performing at 5 different venues. And there's a bunch of lights and like structures and art everywhere, and it's really breathtaking. But let me take it back to about a week before we were about to leave. Me and my brother packed up our Scion TC full to the brim with all of our stuff, just leaving a little space so that he could see out the rearview window. And we leave at 3 a.m. to drive 6 hours to Rothbury, Michigan to meet up with at least 30 other people at this Walmart so we could all like head to the forest together so we weren't lost. And, of course, right before we were about to leave, me and my best friend, Caleb, realized we didn't bring any shoes that we could just slip on and off really easily. So we sprinted back into Walmart and grabbed the cheapest pair of sandals that we could find. They were $10, and Caleb ended up wearing them for all 5 days and had a blister like the size of a silver dollar at least on his foot. But he said it was worth it, so he wasn't too worried about it. And we got everything, and we were headed to the forest. We figured out when we got there that there was a 2-mile-long line already just to get into another search line. And like the search line is just so they can search your car and make sure you don't have any weapons or anything. And the first thing I realized when we got to that search line was it wasn't just everybody waiting in their cars waiting to get searched. Everybody was out and like listening to music and just vibing and like talking and feeling good. And so I got out because I had to pee. And and I walked past this group of guys sitting on top of their car, and they asked me how many years I've come to Forest. And I said, this is my first year. Actually, this is my first ever concert. And all of their jaws just dropped. And they said, no, dude, this is going to change your life. And I said, I just kind of laughed, and I was like, okay. I mean, this is just kind of a music festival. How is it going to change my life forever? But I had no idea. I had no idea how right he was. We got through the search, and we were setting up our tents and canopies, and we realized that we didn't have any stakes to stick our canopy in the ground, so it'd just be flying away. So we had to ask our neighbors, and they said, yeah, but you got to get to know us first. So we went over and shared some food and drinks with them and just kind of became a community. And after that, we got everything set up and we were listening to music and just talking, laughing, dancing, singing, just vibing. And that's when I realized everybody was there for the same reason I was: happiness. However, there was one thing missing. My best friend and girlfriend couldn't be there because there were some problems in our friend group when we got together, and the person she was riding with didn't want to ride with her anymore. So yeah, it kind of broke our friend group up, and it felt like we were all just kind of like drifting apart. But I noticed 2 days after the festival actually began that I was creating these great bonds with these people that I thought I lost. I was really happy that I made these connections, and I wanted to bring them back home to Wisconsin to like our friend group, but there were some problems that I thought weren't fixable, so it really killed me. It hurt me so bad to have that thought just stuck in my mind. So I did what I thought was best, and I just gave up. I just stopped trying, and I don't really give up that much. And it was hard, but it was worth it because, oh shit. It was worth it because that helped me not think about like my girlfriend as much. Like I missed her a lot, and I didn't want to dwell on that and dampen my experience, so I had to like make better connections with the friends that I thought I lost so that I could better understand like the situation from their perspective. It was at this time that I realized that nothing is impossible unless you give up. And the most ironic thing about Electric Forest is I didn't even really have a favorite artist or song, even though there were over 100 artists there. My favorite thing was the connection, the love, and the community that was there, and I'm glad that I could bring a little bit of that back with me and share it with you guys. Yeah. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Cody one more time, everybody. How about these students? That's so cool. You know, I don't really go to music festivals anymore, so it was really fun to, vicariously go to Electric Forest with Cody. I felt like I was right there with you, brother. That was fun. So our next speaker is a student at MG21 as well, and her name is Cersei Adora Johnson, and she is just another person who exists. Well, I got to make sure I word this right, because I thought this was pretty heavy. She's gonna read it. She's her own host.
Sorry, I didn't know Kevin was gonna read it. I thought I was gonna read it.
So okay, get it.
Okay, so it goes. I'm just another person who exists on this earth's constant pull for the past 15 years. I enjoy writing, falling into the currents of music, and drawing my thoughts in the journal I've kept since 5th grade. I'm a student at MG21.
Yeah! I'm going to bring that mic stand down.
Okay.
How's that?
Is
that
too low?
Sorry.
Too high.
Right there?
Yeah, it's pretty good. This is more of like a poem than a story, but there's a story inside of it, so, There's this mug. It sits in the living room. No one really touches it, I'm guessing because it's filled with inkless pens and broken pencils. Pieces of mass that just sitting there, wasting space. Like the living room no one really goes into, except for the time between 6 to 8, the TV clicks on where my mom forgets the work she does to keep the water pouring and the lights from fading dim. This is when I sit in my room, the aroma of my room, chasing mental states into a cave and forgetting to thank her that I have one. I ask myself, why is it that when the sun is shining, I keep the curtains closed? The voices in the corner of my mind lit up my eyes and said, this is where your demons hide and where you become them. This is where my past are no longer memories and you become that too. Every teardrop, every car ride, every I miss you coded in abuse. Every windowsill I'd sit on, inhaling every musty speck of dust that coated the ladybug's dead, decrepit bodies. I miss that smell, a scent that travels to a time before this violence. It follows me from the age of 5 to 15, from yelling through the floorboards into sleepless nights. Since the age of 13, I've been in a battle with my mind. Every day I'd pick a fight just to get out of bed in the morning, just to condemn the isolation of every fluorescent light above me. I'd keep my sanity with the makeup on my face. Where the girls' bathroom was renamed to, "This is where you'll have your daily panic attacks." I'd pray no one would walk in, and if they did, I'd cradle my knees together over the toilet seat and hope to God they didn't hear me cry, or see it on my face when it was time to get back to class, or when they'd catch me running away from the clocks through the hallways of what I considered pure hell. Deprived from our individualities, entitling them to the biggest authority figure. This is what we learn. This is how we live. This is who we are. From every office cubicle to every passing car, I'd like to think it's purposeless to pass a scent of gasoline. Reminiscent of this blasphemy, returning into catastrophes of lack of sleep and constant need for validation. I could cry oceans from what has become of the world I secrete myself from. With every thought that swiftly passes through my mind, and every night that fills with starry skies, I remind myself that, though it's hard to see, beauty still remains. That of which I'll hold your hand and cry about the spiders that were smashed under the shoe of this kid I knew in the 4th grade. I'll lie awake and wonder, what was his name, and where is that spider now? I'd guess some things are meant to be hidden, secluded from our minds. I was a pessimistic kid, taken from our innocence from the age of 5, restoring our lives with every night we slept at the shelter. Since then, I saw things from a different lens. I found beauty in imperfections. From abuse, I found lessons, hating Mondays and Sunday aggression towards myself, forming in directions. Every tear I'd shed, every hospital bed, every eye-catching glimpses, grasping my life, not to mention, every nurse wearing white trying to help me through depression. Death they couldn't prevent, and I was waiting for nothing, not even to vent. It's hard enough as it is. There is no end, an ideal one at least. With each letter I type, this is a beginning. When I'm older, I'll do twin things and fulfill dreams of loft apartments with fairy lights above a coffee shop. Every perimeter on the walls, picture frames and ramen cups, streets that fill with the endless rush of smell of gasoline, unfulfilled catastrophes feeling like they're after me when really I'm constantly after myself. One day, maybe, I'll be content with myself, collecting seashells in mason jars, lighting incense for the smell, and when I'm 20 with the job I love, all is well, all is well.
Give it up, everybody. So I found it very interesting when I was working with them because they would say that she felt that was a poem, but I really feel like that was a story as well. I think that that's the beauty of words, is that it's a poem to some, but it's a story to most. That's how we tell our stories sometimes. That was beautiful. Thank you. Give it up for Circe one more time, everybody. So now we're moving on into we have a couple adult speakers that are going to come up and tell some stories. And then after that, we're going to have a little break. And Tyson from Sourdough is going to have some treats for us. But next, we're going to have Lindsay Wood Davis up. And Lindsay Wood Davis and his family have lived in Monona since 1997. He's a Hall of Fame broadcaster, an environmental advocate, and has canoed. See, that's how nervous I was about saying the right word. I thought it was canoed, but I was like, that's a really I've never said that word. It has canoed on more than 120 Wisconsin rivers and streams. I'm from Kansas. There's no water there, so I don't really. Around here, he perhaps is known as the leader of the team behind our own 98.7 WVMO and the voice of Monona. Let's give it up for Lindsay Wood Davis, everybody.
A driver's license. To some, it's just a piece of plastic laminated personal identification. But if you're 15 or 16 or 17, it's a magic carpet ride to adventure, a passport to freedom, a way to feed the need for speed. Today, your driver's license from the Wisconsin DMV is filled with important data and a variety of anti-counterfeit technologies. But your driver's license from the Illinois Secretary of State in the 1960s was really Nothing more than a piece of heavy stock paper. That was the driver's license that was in my wallet as I stood by the side of Army Trail Road in unincorporated DuPage County. Today, that's a major thoroughfare through Chicago's suburban industrial sprawl. But back in the summer of '67, it was just a two-lane county blacktop, shooting out straight as an arrow out through the cornfields. There was hardly ever any traffic out there at night, and what there was you could see coming from a long, long way. So it was the perfect place to lay out a quarter-mile drag strip with carefully painted start and finish lines. We were gathered there that night to see if my friend Chip's '55 Chevy would indeed pull a wheelie, get its tires up off the ground in the front, when he nailed that 348 cubic inch Chevy V8, the one with the big Holley carburetors and a hot Iskandrian cam. He was running that night up against his rival, Steve, with a '57 DeSoto and a Fire Dome Hemi. It was old, but it was famously fast. The white handkerchief waved, pedal hit the metal, tires screeched, and yes, that '55 did a wheelie. It was at that exact moment when the lights and sirens on a dozen DuPage County Sheriff's Patrol cars came blasting out of the side roads, blocking Army Trail Road in both directions. There was no way out. They herded us all together in a big group and then brought us out individually so each one of us would have an opportunity to have a come to Jesus chat with a member of the DuPage County Sheriff's Patrol. They were big, they were tall, they had giant flashlights, and they had a uniform that featured a real Smokey the Bear hat, tilted forward at a menacing angle. When it was my turn, the sheriff's deputy asked me to show him my driver's license, which I had already fished out of my wallet. Now, it's important here that I explain to you a little bit of Illinois legal procedure. Back in those days, if you received a ticket, the arresting officer would take your driver's license and staple it to the original of the ticket, and that would be sent off to the courts for adjudication. They love to say adjudication. He would then give you a carbon copy of that ticket to be used as your temporary driver's license until your original was sent back to you after adjudication. You never ever wanted to be put in a position of showing that copy of a previous ticket to a police officer who wanted to talk to you about your next ticket. A common sight back then was seeing an officer holding a driver's license right over the lens of his flashlight. He was looking for staple holes in the corner of your driver's license. Proof positive that you had had previous run-ins with the traffic police. The DuPage County Sheriff's deputy did indeed hold my driver's license over the lens of his flashlight. He studied it. He looked up at me. He looked back down at my driver's license. He looked back up at me, his head shot forward, banging the brim of his Smokey the Bear cap off my forehead, and he said in a low, menacing tone, "Son." "Yes, sir." "Son, there's no corner left on the corner of your driver's license." No, sir. Sorry, sir." And that's how I learned to steer a new path and drive ever so slowly the remainder of the summer before my senior year. Thank you.
So we have one more story before our break. Our next story is going to be told by Jennifer Falkowski. And did I get that right? Falkowski. Jennifer Falkowski. And she is a local textile artist who was raised in a library. She coordinates Mending Day and Friends of the Monona Library annual scavenger hunt and FOML Oh, that's the same thing. Okay, that's that whole thing abbreviated. I'm sorry. And she loves teaching people to play and be creative. You can follow her online at Jennifer Dies. Give it up for Jennifer, everybody.
The theme for tonight is following your path, and so I was really thinking about that with the story, because where I am right now on my path, I love it so much, and I know, of course, it's just a path; it's going to change. But I get to be an artist, which is awesome, and I get to teach people how to make stuff, which is awesome, and I can speak in front of large groups. I speak to some guilds and stuff locally, and I really thought back in time, you never would have believed that was true, because when I was a little kid, I was painfully shy. We moved from this little rural town in upstate New York to a really competitive suburb of Chicago, and I never knew what was going on. And I had a really hard time connecting with other kids. And there was this one time I remember I was like 9 or 10, and there was this group of girls, and they would meet by the door to the cafeteria after recess, like we're waiting to go back in, and they would talk to each other. And I thought they were fascinating because they just knew what to talk about. And they were super comfy with each other, and like they looked like they had it together, like they had belts, and like their hair was brushed, and like someone told them their socks need to match. And so they always seemed to have it like totally together. So I really wanted to watch them and figure out how things work. And so I thought, like, how can I sort of hang out here and be subtle? I know, I'm gonna stare at the brick wall. That's normal, right? Like I see people by walls. So I would stand, like they'd be right here, and I'd stand by the brick wall and I would stare at it. And I would listen really closely, and they just like had an ease, like they understood how it worked, and they were chatting and I was listening. And I did it for a while, and then one day I heard, "Hey, Jennifer." And I looked and they said, "We know you're listening to us. You know, it's weird. You're a weirdo." And I thought, yeah, that's right, I am. That is weird. Like, and that's the worst thing you can throw at me. I'm good, I'm gonna be fine. And so I've been able to follow that weird path all the way to where I am now, and I love it. So thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me here tonight to tell my story about walking a path that I didn't really choose. I didn't really decide to walk it, but I did walk it, and it led me here to Monona for the last 20 years. So I was a stay-at-home mom living out in the country in an old house outside of Mount Horeb, 4 kids 2 years apart, and we went to storytellers and magicians and science events and museums and all those things. And we went to the community center library basement to see Playtime Productions do a play. And I thought it was really good. And I looked over near the light switch, and there was an intense woman with her arms crossed like this. And I thought, she must be in charge. And indeed she was. It turned out that she was Teddy Stute, a longtime Monona resident who founded Playtime in 1979 and kept it going for many, many years. 2 plays a year, one in the fall, one in the spring, and sometimes one in the summer. And she wrote over a dozen adaptations of familiar children's tales for a cast of 25 kids with 8 to 10 musical numbers. So anyway, she is a wonderful person, lived here in Monona. So there we were watching the play, and over the next few years we went to several more plays, and then suddenly one of my 4th grade boys was doing skits on the playground instead of playing soccer or football. And I thought, okay, well maybe it's time that he auditioned for one of those plays. So I called the number and I got Teddy on the phone, and she said, yep, there's a huge time commitment, and everything takes place right here at the Monona Public Library, which back in those days before the Beltline got all snarly was about a 35-minute drive from our house. So we went through the play cycle, and I saw how great it was for the kids who were in the play. They learned memorization and reading and leadership and teamwork and personal responsibility. And I just thought, wow, this is a lot more than I thought it was just a play. And then the next play cycle, another of my sons wanted to be in, so he auditioned too, and they both got parts. And about a week after casting, I got a phone call from Teddy, and she said that she'd only called one other person because we were the second ones down on this list, and that she was stopping the play. She was going to fold it right then and there. She just couldn't go on. She was going to be folding the whole production company, actually. She was losing her musician. She was losing the library and her health. I found out later about the library, because this is where they rehearsed, that there wasn't enough supervision, and when they would leave a room, it looked like the inside of someone's closet. So we fixed that later on. But anyway, I said, oh, well, wait, this is such a good thing. Let me help you. I'm in a transition period in my life right now. My youngest is in morning kindergarten, and I'm taking a class back at the university so I can finish my psychology degree, and then I'm going to go off and get a job. But at this point, I can help you. Just let me help you get through at least this play. And she agreed, and so we did. And we made it through that play cycle. And of course, then I saw all of the other elements that I thought were so vital to the community to keep it going. All the sponsors, all the families. So we talked to a lot of people and said, should we try to keep it going? And we decided, yes, let's give it a try. Teddy said she thought she could just direct maybe every other play, and if we could find somebody else to direct, we could do it. So I did all the management stuff, and we did find another Monona community person, Sarah Whalen Blake, and she directed a play, and then Teddy would, and then she did, and then Teddy did. And then we looked for someone else, and I had taken some classes in, of course, now theater, because I was into this now. And my acting partner in Acting 101 happened to be a kid who, of course, had been in Playtime. And he told me how much it meant to him, how he had friends. He even had a girlfriend where middle school was really rough for him, so that was kind of fun. And then I also took a class called Theater for Young Audiences, where there was Dr. Manon Van Duwater explaining the history of children's theater and all of the different children's theaters that there were across the nation and the world. And I realized how unique Playtime really was, a traveling troupe of kids taking a play to 15 different performance locations. So all these things just made me want to keep it going and keep it going. So we worked hard and couldn't find another director, just couldn't. We looked and nobody really wanted to do it. We were slowly building the organization so that we could pay people so that the musicians and such could be replaced, but we hadn't gotten to that point yet where it was really a salaried position. And Sarah said, Renee, you should direct. I can teach you. And she mentored me through my first play, and I really, really liked it. And my very, very first play that I did totally on my own was The Red Shoes. And that's a story about a girl who really wishes for a pair of shoes, but once she puts them on, she can't stop dancing. That, by the way, is the play we're doing in the spring, in case you want to come see us in April and early May. Just really coincidentally. So anyway, I sort of feel like that's sort of what happened for me, is that I put on the red shoes of Playtime and walked my path, and I've been in Monona for 21 years. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Renee, everybody. My father is a screenwriter and has done playwrights and done plays my whole life. So I feel like that the reason why I can get up here and hold a microphone and be so comfortable is because of plays as well. Because I think that it's a really big part of our community and a part of our growth as people trying to learn how to express themselves and feel comfortable on the stage. And like she was saying, one of her students was out of college. That's how that works. So we're going to give it up for our next speaker. We have a couple students that are come up and talk. So I've been working with Nathan on his great story. His name is Nathan Rodfield. He is a student at MG21. He loves fishing, hunting, and Blaze Orange. And there's much more to his journey yet. Can we give it up for Nathan, everybody?
My name's Nathan Rodefeld. My freshman year at high school, I lived in Port Charlotte, Florida, where my life changed. The years before, I lived in Cottage Grove, Wisconsin. The reason me and my dad and my older brother moved was to live with my grandparents. My grandpa Charles had suffered from Alzheimer's, a disease that deteriorates the brain over time. Life was more than that for me there. I had lost my brother before school started. I had never lived without one of my brothers before. I looked up to them a lot. So when he left, I had forgotten about my family, how my grandpa was suffering from a disease and those times that we could have been were never, My brother, the school down there wouldn't accept my brother's credits from MG21. So we moved back home to go to school and stay with Mom. So at that point, I'm all alone. It's just me. and school started, and I knew a couple kids from down the street because one of them had some salad that I liked. But other than that, it was just me riding my bike every day, meeting new people, hanging out with friends that brought me to my downfall. I started saying F school and doing too many drugs, and finally it led up to the point where my dad couldn't force me to school, so they were going to file me with truancy and possibly put me in a foster home. And when I found that out, I really knew I messed up. Me and my dad packed our bags and left Florida. But when I got home, I found what I was missing, and it was my family. Oop, I kicked the stand. Oh, sorry, I missed where. And I found what I was missing, and it was my family. I didn't have that support behind me, and looking back, most of the kids I knew that didn't support me, they were nothing like my real friends, my family. I never realized how much my dad was trying to help me down there either until I got home. The guy had my back. I mean, give it up for Troy Rodefeld over there in the back seat. Pretty decent guy. So yeah, there until I got home, the man had my back. I never really knew how much my friends were my family until that point, which then led into me attending MG21, like the rest of my siblings and family, building an even bigger community. I didn't want an alternative to school. I just wanted an alternative community and school so I could feel that I had the respect from others around me. And that's what I found at MG21. More family, a good community, a piece to the puzzle that was limiting me from walking my path.
Give it up for Nathan, everybody. It's not easy getting up here and telling your story. You know, I know I seem like a scholar up here as well, but I also barely graduated high school as well. So I think it's so amazing that MG21 supports these kids and gives them a place to find themselves and be themselves. And let's just give it up for MG21 one time, everybody. Give it over to these students as well. That was great. I love that story, bro. So AC Johnson is going to be our next storyteller. She loves to write. She is a student at MG21. Writing to her is not just a hobby, it's medicine. Sometimes she likes to share her writing. She's going to share with all today. We should all feel loved and blessed by her presence, everybody. AC Johnson, come on to the stage.
By the age of 6, in my world, phones didn't exist. We threw rocks and sticks, climbed trees, fell down, imagined, played, pretended, ran around, fell asleep, repeat. I failed at math and excelled in art. That part hasn't changed. We rollerbladed through the hallways and climbed the cliff outside of our apartment. We got the cops called more than twice, maybe 3 times. We continued to do dangerous things to fill our time, even though there was a park right across the street. When I was 7, me and my sisters would dance in the mirror to the Beatles, amazed at how it reflected so parallel. We tried to move faster than it, or catch ourselves in the glass not following us to our exact. We laughed a lot, although they would fight. We hid in closets when we heard yelling and told the youngest it was only a game. We hid from dragons and ghouls and life-size spiders. Our tears created oceans we would sail away on. Playing turned into more of a distraction. The cops had come. Once they found us while we were hiding. By the age of 8, the mirror was no longer my friend. I hid under sweaters. When we left, the walls of the shelter weren't warm enough after we begged for somewhere to stay. My dad was all alone, left in his little catacomb of broken glass and fake apologies. He deserved it, but he didn't. I worried for him. As a child, you would think I didn't understand, but I did in its entirety. I felt everything. We were nothing but puzzle pieces, broken puzzle pieces, mixed and matched with the rest of the ladies that didn't have homes. They prayed for us, sometimes with us, together. I have not done that for a while. They read us books and drank tea. We were good at pretending. By the age of 9, I was only getting by. I heard the heartbeat pound away in my ears as I threw bottles at the sidewalk. The noise mimicked how I felt after I left. but had to go back every weekend. It was all the same, but felt dead when it only brought back the memories I was trying to repress. We pretended that feeling wasn't there. When it shattered, it was relieving to know something, if not someone, felt the same. I came home crying every Sunday after he told me how much he missed me, how he wished I would stay. He wasn't reminding me of the good times. I was not mourning what I lost. It was simply manipulation. Now I get the point when he told me he wanted to die one night. I took it as a responsibility and traded my childhood for it. I broke my arm skateboarding down a huge hill after my mom said not to. I had to get surgery to get it fixed. I did not make it into a metaphor. I promised myself to do better next time. I will do better. I put rocks on my feet, hoping time would listen to me. I am not going until I fix this. But I could only do so much. 10 came anyway. By the age of 10, we moved again. I didn't care. By then, I was a shapeshifter. I took in words. I let them fossilize like knives and stab into my sensitivities. The world spoke mindlessly around me. I let it. Crying was only routine. The sky outside was shining, but my pillow forecasts rain. As I moved farther away from my hometown, the more he had a hold on me. The way you said these things, you placed it in my fragile arms and replaced the innocence in my heart with such incontentness and the constant feeling of feeling like I'm not good enough and I'm supposed to take care of you, but you were supposed to take care of me. You have not yet apologized, and we are stuck behind a screen of static. A transparent wall of our baggage lives in the attic, and it will fall through the floor at some point, but who will clean up the mess? Who will take care of it when it's there? By the age of 12, I thought I was in love. I won't go into the exact because 3 years is a long time. 3 years I can't get back. I gathered my mental like a savings because his time was a lottery, and I did not deserve a cent, or a minute, or a chance, or perhaps a single text. The universe can't count how many bathtubs I've cried in, how many times I denied it, how many times I wanted to give up fighting. I remind myself that everything beautiful has a consequence. Just like my family, just like my dad, I can't let them in. I can't leave him. I left him on my 14th birthday. By the age of 13, I wrote about things on the backs of my worksheets, not paying attention to the note-taking that I stated would not matter in 20 years. I was angry at myself and at the world. I wore black around my eyes and on my clothing. I kept my writings like trinkets and read them to myself for different reasons. I would stitch the pages together, hoping they would turn to wings and fly me away, maybe even away from me. By the age of 14, I sank down deeper. There weren't enough rooms, so I moved down into the basement. There, I was safe. It was quiet, but without sounds. My mind is loud and thinking turns into violence. I am lost, but I realize I am either the sickness or the cure of what kills me.
Give it up for A.C. Johnson, everybody. That's such a moving, powerful story. You know, growing up is very difficult, right? You know, but I think talking and reading and writing, like she was saying, is the thing that healed her and gave her medicine. So let's give it up for AC one more time. An incredible writer. An incredible writer. So powerful. So we have a few more speakers here in our second half. Y'all having fun at the Story Jam? All right. So next we have Michael Tomaloff, and he is known as the Willie Street Co-op Mr. T. He is a professional cook. He lives in Cottage Grove. He is back in the culinary trades after a long and boring hiatus, and is thrilled to have the opportunity to share his love and passion for the craft of cooking. Food that nourishes both the body and soul. Let's give it up for Michael, everybody.
I'm Mike, and this is about Kapusta. Because when I cook, I find myself thinking of all the people who got me there, the people who taught me the craft and the mechanics and the secrets and put me on the path that I'm on. And when I cook at home for friends and family, I think most about Harriet Rosinski, my Aunt Hattie. She lived in a small house with the stoic yet hilarious Uncle Leo, and they lived next door to Hattie's sister, Gladys, gay. Vladislava, they called her before the nuns changed it. And Grandpa Chuck. And they had this huge backyard, and I could write chapters on any of these people. But this is about Hattie, and she was born in Poland in a small village next to a national forest on the border with Russia. And she used to tell me about the summers she would spend with her aunt and uncle, helping around the house with the cooking and the cleaning in Warsaw, and rolling his cigarettes before he went to work, and tending their garden, which was full of tomatoes. The pricking of the vines drove her to hate tomatoes for the rest of her life. But her sister Gladys was born here, but Auntie came over on the boat right past the Statue of Liberty and to America. And her father was a citizen already, and she was spared the indignities and the poking and the prodding and the shuffling and the herding and the impromptu name changes of Ellis Island. She and Leo didn't have kids of their own, but that didn't stop them from being like parents to a whole lot of us, my brother and my mother and I included. And for years, starting in 55 or 56, they would take groups of kids to Disneyland in California to visit there and to see my uncle ski, who was a helicopter pilot in the Marines. And they would eat dinners of oatmeal, or they'd share a Cornish hen between the two of them just to fill the Disneyland fund. But then on Sundays, Sunday supper was, all the rules were it was all bets were off, because the menu at those family meals was an encyclopedia of comfort food. Cabbage rolls and stew and braised short ribs, cornflake chicken, chop suey, stroganoff. But the king of her recipes, the one that brings it home for me, is kapusta. Now, if you've never heard of kapusta, it's braised sauerkraut with cabbage and mushrooms and onions and bacon and vinegar. And hers was the best. Every Polish family probably has this recipe, but hers was the best. So whenever I lift the lid on a pot of kapusta that I make, it takes me right back to her and Leo's house. Just the giant strawberry cookie jar, every detail of her kitchen, the aluminum drinking cup on the sink, the lacy curtains, every magnet on the avocado fridge, every drawer pull and every cabinet handle is just... And we'd pack in the car and head over to the adjoining houses over on Durand Avenue, and that storm door would open, and that metallic hiss and that squeaky chain would open up, and that smell, cabbage and bacon, would just pull you in. And of course, when I was 8, I didn't understand the beauty of fermented cabbage, much less the dish of kapusta, of which the cabbage is the root. But I didn't get that. Another thing that I didn't get when I was 8 was that someday I couldn't fathom that this cast of characters would be anything but alive and present, with a joke and a story and a hug and to pass the mashed potatoes. And there's nothing I wouldn't give now just to go back to one of those dinners for a moment, just a minute. And this dish, this simple pleasure of cabbage and mushrooms and peasant food, I still cook it in my aunt's cast iron pot, and it's my time machine. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Michael, everybody. I want to try some of that Polish dish. Can you get that at the Willie Street Co-op? Soon. All right. All right. Tony's the one to talk to. Watch out, Tony. You're going to have some fans afterward. So our next speaker is Missy Kodorsky, and she is the recreation supervisor of the Aquatics Center here at Monona Parks and Recreation. She's a real-life Leslie. Nope. And is an Illinois native. Let's go Bears. So when Missy isn't working, she's enjoying boating on the Monona Lake, hanging out with her 3 dogs, and biking around Madison's beautiful bike paths. Can we give it up for Missy, everybody?
Okay, so funny story before I get going on my personal journey. So Tony and I were meeting a couple weeks ago about a fitness class. Tony says, "Missy, come be part of our Storytellers Jam." I say yes. not really knowing the details of what's involved. That's usually what happens. So here I tell Tony, yes, I think I'm reading a story book to the community, not coming up here to tell a story of my life. So when the details came out, little was I, a little shocked, but here I am, and I put together a nice little story for you all. So my defining moment in my life was when my parents told me that their pocketbook was closed, that the bank of mom and dad is no longer opened, that I have to find another source of income. So, 15 years old, I don't have a lot of skills, I don't know what to do, I'm wondering, where do I go? So, we have a local park district in our community, and I said, I guarantee that they have some jobs available. They would probably hire a 14, 15, 16-year-old. So my mother takes me to the local park district, and I fill out my very first job application for a lifeguard. Any other lifeguards in the crowd anywhere? No? 1, 2, maybe? I know some of you. So here I am, 15 years old. I put in my first job application. I go to my interview, and I sit behind my little desk, and I'm wondering, what questions is this lady going to ask me? What am I going to do? How am I going to answer? Well, one question after another, I'm answering 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. The interview's over. I'm waiting days. Feels like months. Feels like years. Am I going to get this summer job? I get the phone call. Missy, we would like you to come work for the park district. Is that something you're still interested in? Yes. Here I am, my ticket to summer freedom. I have that first job. So I go, I sit down, I take my first lifeguarding class. My wide eyes, I'm taking notes, I'm highlighting, I'm left, I'm right. I'm loving the entire thing. Little did I know, I can make a career out of it, and here I am still today. So that one thing that my parents said, of you no longer have access to our money, put me towards the path of success of where I am today. So just that one little first job when I was 15, sitting behind that desk, brought me to where I am here today still. So come visit us at the pool when it opens next summer. We'll be there.
That's a great story because I am a horrible swimmer. I can't swim. My father never even swam his whole life, so I need lifeguards in my life. So I'm so thankful for all the work that you. I moved to Wisconsin, and my wife is she has me swim in water. I'm getting better, but it's a journey being a swimmer for sure. That's awesome. So we have our last MG21 student who's going to come up and speak. Let's give it up for our MG21 students one more time, everybody. Cody, Nathan, AC, Sierra. Everyone was so great. So Sierra Reeder is a student at MG21. She loves adventuring, critters, and playing all sports. Give it up for Sierra, everybody!
I need someone to tell me how I'm supposed to tell a story about following my path when I don't know what my path is. I'm Sierra Reeder, I'm 17. And I honestly haven't figured out what my path is yet. So I've been doing what I've been told to do. I go to school, be a good student, make friends, get a job, and make money. But no one has told me how to handle all the bad things that happen, so I show all my emotion. But the moment I show emotion, everything seems to come crashing down. People start saying I'm insane, I'm psycho, I need mental help. But in reality, I'm just a normal person that's lost. I'm a normal person that lets everything get to me, and I show that everything gets to me. I'm a normal person that shows emotion. But right now, I'm stuck in this spot in my life filled with depression and anxiety. But get this, the spot I'm stuck in, I can get unstuck from it pretty easy. If I'm not surrounded by toxic environments. If I'm not in those toxic environments, you wouldn't even recognize the person I become. Because outside of those environments, I love myself. I set goals for myself. I want to graduate and go into the Air Force. I want to be a good role model for my peers and especially my little brother that has Downs. Outside of those environments, I'm happy. I'm truly happy, but I'm 17. And when you're 17, you have limitations. I need to listen to my parents and try to follow it as best as I can, but it's hard when my brain is telling me that I can't talk to them how I want to talk to them. I want to tell them that I get bullied. I want to tell them when my suicidal thoughts get worse. I want to tell them that I need more support from them. I want to tell them what I need, but I don't feel like I can. So I go to school, put on a fake smile, and say, I'm okay. But these immature students drive me up the wall, and I'm making sure that I get everything done so I can graduate. It puts so much stress and anxiety on me, and my brain can hardly wrap around it. So I try and spend most of my time with the person that means the most in my life. He makes me smile when I don't even want to smile. He makes me so happy. When I'm with him, it feels like all my problems melt away. And when I'm with him, I can see the path that I'm on, the path that's truly meant for me. He does more for me than he even knows. I'm the luckiest person to have him. And, sorry. He's the one that's made me figure out that I'm not stuck in this hole of depression and anxiety. He's made me realize that I'm at this point in my life where I need to surround myself with the people that I love and that push me to be more successful in my life. I just need to breathe and wait for my next big adventure. Thank you.
Give it up for Sierra, everybody! I think that like she was saying, when you're 17, it's the hardest time in our lives as human beings, and I think that her story is just so relatable to the idea of just trying to figure it out, and then you feel like you're normal, but then you feel like you're crazy, and there's just so many aspects to our life and to our changes that we go through. I just think it's so amazing. These students, you guys' future is so bright. We're so thankful for all of your stories. So we have one more speaker that's gonna come up. He's John DeBacker, and he grew up in a small Illinois village, went to a small college in Iowa. He worked at a small publishers for a small amount of time, and then decided to become a librarian for small people and earn a small salary. Once the director here at Monona Public Library, he is now the director of the Public Library Department, a small team in the DPI. Here we give it up for John, everybody.
Some people know better than to give me a microphone. So I'm so grateful to be here with you tonight, and so grateful to hear those stories from the MG21 students, because my story comes from back in those days. So I'm going to have to channel you back a long time ago in a far southwest suburb of Chicago. I kind of envision this like the Talking Heads song, where you see the baseball diamonds and the nice weather down there, and we come down, it's kind of like on a helicopter, and you see the industrial wasteland and the Cicero Avenue, low rent. It was just, Midway Airport wasn't even open up again. And we come about down on Interstate 55, and then we see greenery and a change in elevation to where the last glacier came to a halt, leaving moisture for those trees and woods, the forest preserves of Cook County, Illinois, and then a place that truly was the Sticks, Palos Park, the Sticks, where there was a village that my parents moved to from their home in Chicago. And my twin sister and I, in the middle of the baby boom, 1956, emerged onto this world. Lived there for 4 years, then moved away twice, only to return in 5th grade. That period of pre-adolescent awkwardness of, I don't know what my gangliness is doing. And I didn't remember, I didn't even know or go to school with any of these students there in this building that still had my dad's name on the nameplate from when he was on the school board there years before. I got cut no slack for that and had to be introduced to my 5th grade class and have everyone look at the big-headed, tall, gangly kid who was new, and I had to go to my desk. So back in those days, we heard one story where, there weren't telephones. There were telephones then, but they were hardwired. So there was really no privacy to calls. And you couldn't even go to a store and buy a different telephone to plug in. You had to buy it through Ma Bell and hope that the cord was long enough so that you could stretch it out into the basement stairs or something like that, and then dial the phone. None of this push buttons or anything like that. The whole number to make your call took forever, and then you had to hope someone was there. There's no answering machine to leave messages. You had to talk to the parents and everything else. Life was hell, and life was boring. There were no great array of television programs on cable TV, no local broadcasting. You had whatever you could pick up through some antenna on the roof if it was aimed in the right direction. Fortunately, we had channels from Chicago, the VH channel, the very high frequency channels, channels 2 through 13. And then when we moved back there, the UHF channels came back, ultra high frequency. But the dials, you had 2 dials on your TV, and the UHF, you had to do this kind of tuning in to get it in just right and hope that something was on that you could watch. So by the time that I got into late middle school, I had never been let out after dinner. That was just my mom's policy. You did homework, she protected us from I don't know what, because really there were so many of us, they were doing everything they could to thin out our populations. They had the jungle gyms and the big slides where you could catch your sweatshirt string on and choke to death on your way down. Everything was planted in asphalt. There was no compressible material under it. So, just giving you the context. So, I don't know, sometime around 12 years old, I tried once again to say, hey, my friends are going to be over at Arlie's house. Can I go out and spend some time with them? And my mom, in a moment of weakness, said yes. And I capitalized on that moment to go forth into the streets of Palos Park. Palos Park had half-acre minimum lots and, septic and wells, and, the streets wound around, the gravel streets all over. So we just walk to friends' houses and see if anything was going on. And usually there wasn't. Maybe we'd get a cookie, and then we'd walk to somebody else's house, hoping that something might be going on. Maybe see if something's on TV. Seen it. It was reruns time. So we'd go out onto the gravel roads again, and some of the roads were laid out in more of a grid and were paved. There was, and I had to learn, not having been out with friends a lot as a kid, I had a twin sister. So, there's only this basis of comparison with what's expected of her and what's expected of me. Everything else I had to pick up through observation. My observations were with young men, with boys. There were basically, just a few things they really liked to do. They liked anything that came out of your body. Girls, on the other hand, and I don't mean to be sexist or anything, but this was based on observation back then in the 1960s, They were more concerned with things you put on your body, but boys, it was whatever came out of your body. You know, I remember your uncle that, you know, did the, hey Johnny, come here, pull my finger. So we'd work through that, and then, so they like to, you know, drop things from high places, light things on fire, and pee on things. So you could combine those sometimes too. You could light things on fire and pee on them. Or, I don't know, light things on fire and drop them off of high places. One of the places we played was this, you know, abandoned bridge over railroad tracks that had become perceived too dangerous for cars, but not for children. So they boarded it off, and not far from my house, and we'd go, I don't know, we'd play variations of war. But we learned that when the trains would come, you could crawl over down onto the abutments that held it up. And you had a little ledge that you could sit on while the train was coming. Running underneath you. And the suction from that train was just awesome. So then we learned we could drop stuff off onto the trains too. And if you were really careful, if you timed it right, because this was science, this was learning, there was a fan on the diesel engine with a metal cage over it. You'd get a big rock and you'd try to time it to push the rock onto the metal cage, down onto the fan, and then you'd hear as the Doppler effect of the sound took into the distance. All right, I know I'm running way past my 3-minute time limit, but that'll teach Teddy for having me come to do storytelling. But I remember going out in the evening, all of that walking with boredom, we found the most exciting thing to do. We'd started listening to the radio, to blues music. It was awesome. And also WXRT in Chicago, which still plays. You got to have a whole combination of music. But one of the performers, kind of in that rock blues juncture, was T-Bone Walker. So we learned, walking on those paved streets, that there were street lights every so often. And you'd walk into the darkness and then into the street light, and then another maybe quarter mile of darkness, and then you'd get this dome of light from the street light, and we like to pee. So if we started under that street light and then walking carefully, spread-legged, away from the street light as far as we'd been able to contain ourselves, and I've had a lot of coffee tonight, so don't make me try to replicate this here. We could lay down this waving path and turn back, and in the mirror, in that street light, it was this wonderful snake path. And the next morning, on the bus, we could point out the wonder of our work. We were such proud pre-teenagers back in that day. So that's my path in my youth, and I thank you very much tonight.
Give it up for John, everybody. That's in that moment there, I kind of had a reminiscent moment of the future when I'm John's age. And I'm going to be doing a thing like this, and I'm going to be talking about when TV turned off. You guys remember that? When TV just went static at the end of the night? You know what I mean? And like before the internet, like you had to have dial-up, and like it took all the phone lines. You couldn't just have, it was crazy. But either way, do you guys mind if I tell a quick story? So my name is Kevin Lamar Wilmot, and my idols are Frederick Douglass and Gil Scott-Heron and Stevie Wonder. And I front a band called Don't Mess With Cupid here in Madison, and we do an Otis Redding tribute. But that's besides the point. I'm going to tell my story. I came here from Lawrence, Kansas 8 years ago. And in Lawrence, Kansas, when I was 19, I graduated high school, and I moved out into the country at my brother's house that he had. It was kind of like a hippie commune. It was called the Moat House. And it was I went out there. We played music in the barn. I knew about it, but I was very excited to move out there. I moved out the day I could move out of my parents' house. I moved everything in my car. No one helped me. I moved all my own things. I was very proud of that. So then I moved out to the Moat House, right? And I'm living out there, and it's pretty scary. I don't know if you guys have lived in the country. It's pretty scary driving home at night in the country. Especially when you're driving home at like 1 or 2 in the morning. There's no street lights, like John was talking. There's nothing you can really guide your way home to, right? So I'm driving home, and I'm a Kansas Jayhawk fan, and they had just lost the game, and it was tragic. And I had I'll never forget it. It was the year after we won the national championship. But so I'm driving home, and I got all the way up to the top of the hill, and it had been snowing. It had snowed 10 inches at this point already. I should have left a long time ago, but I was trying to watch this game. So I drive up this hill, and I get to the top of the hill. And once you get once you get to the top of the hill, you're basically just cruising home. Now you guys know how to drive in the snow. You gotta let the momentum kind of guide you. But I get to the top of this hill, and then there's no street lights, but all it is this luminous, like very dim headlights of a car. This car is not a very nice car. It looks very, very rough. It's like rusted, old gray, no paint on it, and there's no cars around. And all I see is just this hooded man. This hooded, huge hood. He's this gray, stringy hair. You can tell he's lost most of it, and he's holding a crowbar. I'm driving. I'm like, do I stop? Like, you know, like I had that moment where I was like, I've seen this movie. I'm not gonna be that guy today. I'm gonna be the guy that's like, keep on driving, bro. No, don't stop. Keep on driving. But he was waving me down, and I felt like he needed my help, and so I stopped. I get over to his car. I'm 19. I get up to his car, and he's like, no one has stopped for over an hour. I've been trying to get help. And he's shaking. He's so cold. It's frigid out. And he's like, man, I didn't live the best life. I've been homeless most of my life, and my hands and my feet don't work. And I looked at his hands, and they were just black and blue. So he'd been so frostbitten his whole life, and he'd been on the cold train. He's like, I can't. I'm a strong man. He said, I can do it. I just can't. I can't grip. I can't grip it right. I can't get it to loosen, man. I need you to help me. And I was like, man, I've never changed a tire before. And so she said, just take off the 4 bolts, jack it up here. And then I was like, man, you need to go in my car and warm yourself up. So I have him go in my car, warm up. I jack up the car. I change the tire for him. I did a hell of a job, by the way, especially for never doing it before. And then so then the guy comes out, and he's just so thankful. And it was 2 days before Christmas, and it really just moved me, because he started crying, and then I started crying, and we hugged each other. And he was like, what can I do for you, man? What can I do for you? You've done so much for me. And he was a Pizza Hut delivery guy. He was like, you can call it Pizza Hut, man, anytime you want. And I'm like, yeah, man, I think I'm good on Pizza Hut, bro. I appreciate you, though. So I guess my story is just that I guess I learned, and I think about this man every December, and every time. I haven't had to change a tire, but if I ever change a tire, I'm going to thank that man again. But I guess my story is just about following your path and being gracious and helping each other out. And y'all helped each other out tonight with this beautiful story slam. It's such a great event. Can we give it up for Tony one more time, everybody? Our shining armor, she made this whole thing. All of our speakers tonight. I'm going to have Ryan come up one more time, and he's going to talk a little bit more. We're going to have a little Q&A. So, Ryan, I'm going to pass the mic over. Thank you all so much. It's been a great time. We'll see you all at the next Story Jam.
All right, thank you, Kevin. All right, everyone, I'm going to talk pretty fast here. Thank you all so much for coming. The speakers were amazing. Kevin was amazing. Tony, as always, was amazing. Thank you so much. As I mentioned at the start, this is the kickoff for the big initiative, the One Community, Many Voices. The signups are out there. You witnessed a lot of brave people up here sharing their stories. We're asking you to be just as brave when we come out to collect your story, or you come here and we collect your story. We want these stories. We want to capture Monona's story. Libraries are known as a place of stories, and I think people mistake that for because we have a lot of books, but that's not just it. We collect the community story because you all come here and we talk with you, and you talk with us. There are stories abound. They just haven't been collected yet. So please help us collect it. Sign up. We'll contact you and look for the next Story Jam in the spring. Thank you all for coming.
I'll give it for our tech guys one more time, too. These guys made it happen. Thank you all so much. There's going to be some snacks and treats. Snacks and treats by Tyson. There's going to be some more food. Stick around, support each other, love each other. Let's keep this beautiful community going.